Even you, master of the Knights of Ren, have never faced such a test.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Knights of Rant / Who Talks First. I'm one of your hosts, I'm CT.
I'm your other host, I'm Solo. We're back. It's been so long.
It's been so long. This has been the hardest 3 weeks in a Star Wars fan's life because it's all I've been able to talk about for the last 3 weeks, or all I've been able to think about.
But you left.
But I
Me,
left and
alone.
I couldn't talk to anyone who cared on an all similar level. Like, not even Matt didn't really like the movie that much, so I couldn't talk to him about it. And you were far away, and every time I tried selling something to my mother, she would be like, "That's a good story, Courtney. You should tell it at parties." So,
Wow.
it was a very...
Mama's butthole.
No, my mom was a butthole. Sorry, Mom.
She's like, I don't want to hear about Star Wars anymore, Courtney.
No, we even saw it together, and so I
Tried to
have conversation about the film with her. And every time I would make a point, she's like, "That's a good story." I'm like, okay. Thanks.
Wow, Mom, I'm trying to tell you about, like, complex symbolism and you don't want to hear about it?
Okay.
I'm smart!
I'm smart, I swear. I want to talk about The Last Jedi. So, over the next several weeks, we will be doing a lot of podcasts surrounding The Last Jedi. Clearly.
Yeah.
And since the movie was broken up into kind of A plot, B plot, C plot, we'll split our podcasts kind of according to that. And today we're going to start off with the A plot.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I want to talk about the most.
Well, I mean, it is the A-plot, so it does make the most sense.
And though we aren't going to talk about the Luke Skywalker. Well, I mean, obviously we'll address that he exists, but we're not really going to talk about his arc. That's going to be for a future episode. We're mostly going to focus on the Rey and Kylo stuff.
Yes.
For this particular episode. But before we get into that, how's your last 3 weeks been?
Lonely! Slept on the couch! Slept a lot.
For some context, that was her choice to sleep on the couch.
Well, I was sad and didn't want to move.
Just wanted to
Because
lie
I was
there.
alone.
I will say that I don't think I've mentioned finishing Phasma, the book.
I don't think you have.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah?
I know, I actually did like it. It's not breaking into my top 5 of...
Anytime soon.
like, it might be like 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
But I did quite enjoy it. I don't care about Phasma anymore, and it doesn't really seem like we have to, but...
No, it really doesn't.
I still have a slight hope that she'll come back as, like, a robot cyborg.
You want her
Phasma.
to Darth Maul?
But she was just so... I want her to be cool.
I mean, I want her to be fucking cool, too, but...
This is
the middle finger to us.
Yeah, I want my knights, though. So, this movie has been a little divisive.
No.
What are you talking about?
Why are you making things up?
And also, may the salt begin. So if you're not wanting to hear a really salty podcast,
but you have to give context to that salt, because like it's not salty about the movie.
Oh, it's salty about the fan base.
Yeah, sorry.
I just want to, like, introduce this podcast with being like, hi, welcome to the Knights of Rant, one of 6 podcasts on the internet that actually liked The Last Jedi, and that's actually going to talk about the story.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the movie and not just rip it a new one.
Well, because a lot of podcasters really like it, but they'll do this thing where they'll mention, the Rey and Kylo stuff is really cool, and then never talk about it again.
You're like, that was the movie.
That was the heart of the movie.
That's the A-plot.
And I know a lot of people are just afraid to talk about it, but clearly we've been
talking about it for a long time,
so we're not really too worried about losing our fan base because of it. I just want to kind of give this little notion. It's kind of really hurtful when you tell your fan base, like, I've listened to other people who are like, we're not a Reylo podcast. And I'm like, stop putting the divide line. Because I feel like so many people won't consider people like us, an actual Star Wars podcast,
Mm-hmm.
because we talk about what happened in the fucking movie.
Or what we thought was going to happen, and then you want to know what?
It happened.
No, everything that we thought was going to happen, like, it happened. It happened in the movie. We saw it.
Here's some slime sound effects.
Instead of shouting to the heavens, I decided to whisper kindly to the audience.
But I don't like that there's Star Wars podcasts and then the Raylo podcasts, which, like, I know the other Raylo podcasts, and I don't even want to call them that. The other Star Wars podcasts that address Raylo because it's a really big part of the goddamn movie, and they also talk about just Star Wars in general. It's not like that's all they talk about.
We've had plenty of podcasts about why your husband is a piece of shit, aka
Darth Maul's a piece of shit, man.
Yeah, we've definitely not talked about Raylo before, and like even like you're a Raylo, I'm a tentative Raylo.
Yeah,
I'm gonna sit here and be like, there's a lot of things that I like, but there's also a lot of things that could like. I'm not ready.
It's
because I'm too scared for them to be like, and then he killed Leia, and then I'm like, well, forget it.
we gotta know. And clearly, the movie can go anywhere else. Because again, it's just the people that are okay with the direction of their character stories in the film. And yeah, like I said before, this is going to be a pretty salty podcast, and I've warned you guys on Twitter for a while now that
things might be a little
salty. Because,
welcome to Crate, the salt planet.
Yep, that's the new podcast name, everybody. So we for a while we didn't even know our own name. It's Salt Planet Crate.
Yep. Because,
I mean, if you were part of the Raylo train from TFA and you kind of saw the hintings of the dynamic in that movie, we've been through shit for 2 years.
Yeah.
And absolute shit where everyone kind of was like, it's either people being
it's
like,
a fangirl
fantasy, which is really disrespectful.
Super disrespectful, and also, not only girls shipped them.
Yep. Shout out to my Raylo boys, man.
Shout out to our awesome, listeners who would constantly be like, I also would like to maybe see them kiss, and I'm a male.
USA Today wants to see them boned, so that's all that's important.
Yeah. And who knows USA Today's gender? Don't assume it.
Don't gender USA Today.
Don't you dare.
And so it's been a very stressful 2 years, and to go through all of that, and then the marketing started, and you kind of see, oh wait, people were trying to convince us we were crazy for 2 years. It's not so crazy. And then, oh no, it's misdirection. The theories coming out about the hand, like the reaching out, people think it's Hux, it's Finn in his, like, it's clearly Kylo. You can see his outfit. Like, Reddit was just convinced it was Hux. There's like, well, now that we have it settled that it's clearly Hux. Yeah, because that makes more sense than Kylo. Hux reaching out to Rey? Or Hux reaching out to anyone?
Right?
That's what made more sense to you? I'm so sorry, this is gonna be...
I'm just trying
Nobody likes us anyway. It's fine. I'm just gonna nail that coffin hammer.
I'm not sure that I even like us. But, what can you do about it? This is the life I was given, and we're gonna roll with it.
And, so yeah, then everyone thought that was a misdirection, and then when this movie happened, people are thinking all of it's a lie, or angry, and I'm just like, they've been saying all of this stuff for 2 years.
You just haven't been paying attention.
You just really wanted your own theories to happen, so your head was kind of up your own ass a little bit. And admittedly, I mean, I won't even say that. We got so much more than I was ever expecting in this movie.
No.
Absurdly so. Needless to say, it didn't end exactly how I wanted it to end, but...
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're coming out of this movie confident and grinning now, but we were fully prepared to eat our fucking socks.
Yeah.
We were like, these are the things that we want, and you know what? None of them might happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna go into this movie and be like, alright, this might be terrible for us.
Mm-hmm.
We might not get anything that we wanted, but instead we got everything handed to us on a silver platter.
Yeah, it was
basically.
pretty aces.
Basically.
And then everyone.
There are definitely things that I would change,
but
yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The overall message of the movie was basically what I wanted it to be.
Oh yeah, the message was absolutely perfect. Mm-hmm. My qualms with it, which will come out in probably... I mean, I have like one that I know that I'll mention here, mm-hmm. but they're very small, and they've gone away significantly since my first viewing. Mm-hmm. Because, yeah, my issues with Luke have they never hindered my opinion of The Last Jedi, mm-hmm. but...
The more you watch it, the more you think about it.
And the more you're like, oh, this does fit. Mm-hmm. Like, there was a couple pieces that I was still like, I don't like that, mm-hmm. how they delivered that, but mm-hmm. whatever. And so, because a lot of people, this really, to me, is the first huge character piece that Star Wars has ever done, that the plot itself, like, the action plot, there's not really much going on, but it was because this was a character plot. And so whenever someone mentions, I'm like, this was a character journey, which are... I know, both of our favorites.
Absolutely. You guys wanted, like, the Star Wars adult novel, and what we got was the Star Wars quote-unquote young adult novel, which I'm like, that's what I want. Mm-hmm. Because it's more about character voices and journeys. So yeah, like, maybe there weren't as many flashy space battles, but the battles that we got were fucking sweet. Mm-hmm. You can't tell me that Crate wasn't beautiful, and you can't tell me that throne room scene was not the fucking most badass thing you've ever seen.
I mean, that's everyone's, I don't want to say everyone's, but a lot of people's, probably a majority of the fan base's favorite scene is the Praetorian Guard scene.
The throne room is just so fucking good.
Oh, I mean, we'll get there. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of talked about this a little bit before, and I think the main, like, dividing line between Star Wars fans are people who read everything literally, mm-hmm. and the people who read everything metaphorically.
Absolutely.
So, for me, I personally approach everything a little more metaphorically.
Yes.
And I personally think that's how
movies
fantasy and fairy tales are supposed to be, like, lessons like that.
Mm-hmm.
That they're not supposed to be literal.
One-to-one literal to real life.
Yeah. And, I mean, in Star Wars, kind of, they always don't really handle these situations. Like, they don't process death. In Star Wars, the saddest anyone ever was about someone dying. I mean, you can go Anakin and Padme, where he shouts, "No!" And Luke's a little bummed out about Obi-Wan, even though Leia's entire planet just exploded.
Yeah.
But they don't treat death very literally. They treat it more like a
plot point.
Yeah, like a developer. And that's, I mean, Disney movies do this. That's why Disney parents are always dead. It's because these are adolescent, like, growing up stories, coming of age stories. Mm-hmm. And they're a lot easier to do if you don't have...
your parents there to help you along.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's hard to tell a coming of age story when your parents are right there. Mm-hmm. Which is why Disney princesses always have their family. Their parents are always dead.
Yeah.
Which is something...
Or you're Jasmine and your dad just a dummy.
Just a dummy. Because what I found really interesting is... So we start off with TFA, and that's really, like, the childhood journey where you kind of have this hero worship of, like, the adult figures in your life. And you kind of think the grown-ups, they know everything because they're adults. And Han Solo is great. Luke Skywalker, he's this myth, and he's amazing. Mm-hmm. And everyone has this kind of naive point of view in the world. Obviously, Kylo has these, like, really toddler-esque tantrums. Mm-hmm. It's very much kind of like a group of kids playing pretend in their backyard. It's one of those movies where, like, I don't want to compare it to Boss Baby. But it's like a bunch of kids, like, in a schoolyard, and they're all playing pretend, and this is what happens, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, metaphorically. This is what they're acting out.
This is a very easy metaphor to follow.
Yeah. And Kylo's like, no, I want to play the game this way. And they're like, no, we want to play on this wings. Kylo's like, no one wants to play the same game as me.
I'm
Why?
upset.
I'm clanky.
I want to play sword fight.
But, like, The Last Jedi, on the other hand, is we get into, like, the adolescence part of it, where you start questioning authority and that, you know, the adults aren't always right just because they're adults.
And not only that, like, they actively disappoint you.
Mm-hmm.
You think that they have all the answers. They either don't or they refuse to.
Adam
show
Driver
you
has,
them.
like, this really interesting quote, and it wasn't even about Star Wars, but just coming to the age where you realize your parents are just people, that your parents don't have all the answers because they're just people, and what a, like...
mind-blowing,
like a mind-blowing, almost sad, depressing time that is. Everything will work out because my parents are almost these... or adult figures.
Yeah, because they'll always have the answer, and anytime I have a question, I can just...
And then you get to the point where they give you the wrong advice, or they can't
they don't
do the right thing for you.
Yeah.
They don't know how to help you, and that's like a really sad
You're
time.
like, oh, I'm kind of... It's not that I'm alone, but I'm kind of alone.
Yep.
How am I going to figure this out if they can't help me? I have to do this on my own?
Oh, they're just people. They're just as capable as I am. They might have more life experience, but that doesn't mean they're always right. So you have this questioning of authority, the separation from your family, growing up past them, kind of discovering who you are, and then sexual awakening is definitely part of that.
Nah, puberty never happens.
Puberty never happens, according to
The internet.
just so you know. But that's such a big thing that a lot of people just are afraid to talk about. And I won't say a lot of people. News sources definitely talk about it. Shout out to the 3 people, and I know you know who you are if you ever listen to this, who are going to talk about it. Because it's such an interesting aspect of the film. And there's definitely sexual undertones. There's so many people who are like, no. I'm like, you have never watched and these movies are hard to find. You've never watched a fantasy movie from the female point of view.
Yeah.
Because you can watch a romance film, and you just clearly know, because you go into knowing the genre, that this romance is happening. And when you go into a fantasy, it's a little more weaved throughout the story.
Yeah, it's not so overt, because it's not like, hey, this is
not the genre.
This is not a romance or a rom-com.
Yeah.
This is a fantasy. Fantasy, yes, fucking love it. I like
And like,
it's also, I don't know. Let's just pull out something out of my tush here. Have you ever heard of the franchise Dragon Age? It's a high fantasy, and you know what that game's got a lot of? Sex. It's got a lot of sex. The Witcher also is a high fantasy, but like that's from a male perspective, but Dragon Age, lots and lots of sex.
Very
and it's just
rarely
woven in it.
do we see movies like this told from a coming of age girl.
Yeah, from a girl being like the main character.
Yeah. So I feel like that's why it's being missed a lot from people of all genders, because they're not used to seeing it.
Well, also because they have this weird purity complex with Rey.
Yeah,
they're like, no, she's not feeling sexual anything, and you're like, why? She's an adult woman. She's an adult. She can.
Yeah,
there's nothing weird about that.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people. They're like, oh, she's too pure for that. I'm like, that's such a dangerous way to look at women.
Yeah.
And
also,
it's
okay, but you remember like Leia and Padme, they definitely had sex because they definitely had children. So, I mean, that's definitely a thing about American culture too. Where like violence,
kind of
hell yeah, sex,
this, like purity, and
we can't talk about sex and sexuality.
We can't talk about it,
but we can watch people be beheaded. That's fine.
Yeah, and
welcome to America.
And the heart of this movie and the interest and the intrigue of this movie, I feel like, is just being ignored because
they're kind of exploring all of these different forms of love.
I mean, metaphorically, it is all there, but and you can tell by a lot of the imagery. It's not so much literally, but as we mentioned before, metaphorically. I mean, we start out the film with Kylo, and he's being berated by Snoke
for his dumb mask,
and it's Snoke literally. It's kind of if you guys don't know, my homeboy Count Dooku. I love this. I love when villains tell you exactly what they're doing, and the person they're talking to just not getting the point or ignoring it or being like, you're lying. So like when Dooku is talking to Obi-Wan, he's just like, hey, just so you know, a Sith Lord has taken over your government. Everyone's like, oh, I don't believe you, when that's exactly what happened. In this case, it's a little more vague, but Snoke's talking to Kylo, and he's just like, you wonder why I keep Hux around, but you see, weakness, when properly manipulated, is a powerful tool. Yeah. And that's just hands down what he's doing to Kylo. Yeah.
He's like, I found you when you were the most weak and vulnerable, and then I was like, let's twist this. Perfect. And
so, like, this was one of the things that was updated on the databank. And so he was, Snoke called him out as being weak and sentimental, and then Kylo led a mission to destroy Leia Organa's Resistance flagship, but found himself unable to fire on his mother. He was also confused by an increasingly strong Force connection with Rey, who had sought out Luke Skywalker to train her in the ways of the Force, and they could see each other across light years. This mysterious connection grew stronger and would shape their destinies. Platonically.
Purely platonically, from a totally
platonic aspect.
Only platonic. Pure. Nothing else there. Neither of those characters have sexual drives.
Yeah. And so,
like most
and
humans.
I like that this happens right away. And we'll talk about this later, because I have a few questions for you, because I wonder how you read it, because we haven't been able to really talk in 3 weeks.
No, not at all.
And so I have certain things that I want to ask you and be like, how you read these scenes. Because so Kylo, at a certain point, it's like, I've given everything I have to you, and at one point gets up and gets ready to charge Snoke in the beginning of the movie. And Snoke then zaps him.
He's like shit, I'm too weak.
Bam! Because, like, the guards even, like, get up. They're like, oh, time to fight this motherfucker. And so we know from very early on that Kylo's kind of unhinged, not doing very well. He tries to attack Snoke in the beginning of the movie. And so destroys the mask, goes down.
Ready my ship! Never seen that man before in my life.
Dear Lord. Also, ready my ship is just a metaphor for this whole movie. He's like, hold on, ready my ship.
Me too, mine too.
He doesn't shoot down Leia, which it's so hard to talk about Leia and her character arc, because you know this is like a real life tragedy, because you know they were building to something so potentially good. Yeah. Because he can't kill his mother. Which, I mean, clearly he has no problem. He wants Luke to die. Yeah. And he managed to kill Han. He wasn't super great about it.
He wasn't super chill. But he thought he wanted to do it, and then afterwards was like, oh, shit.
But he couldn't kill Leia. And even with killing Leia...
Even in a very impersonal way.
Yeah. I was about to say that, too. He couldn't see her. He just felt her that she was there. And he was like, nope, we'll just keep flying. And something I am curious about, because people have been talking about this online, is that if Kylo actually shot down the TIEs that did shoot. That's what I've been hearing.
But we really won't be able to confirm that
until you can go frame by frame.
DVDs, yeah.
Yeah, high rate frame. So I don't really want to say that's true or not.
Would be cool.
I would love that.
Me too.
Because Hux does come in afterward, like, and saying that he's too far away, and that they can't cover him. And like, oh, that would be sort of interesting that they're acknowledging that
cool, you can't see anymore, ba-boom.
Yeah, exactly. You can't see what I'm doing, so
pew-pew.
Pew-pew-pew-pew-pew. But yeah, so we'll go over to the first Force Bond scene, which, so, like, Kylo in the beginning looks sick AF.
Yeah, he does.
He looks like he's dying, and I really think there's something to be said that during, like, the Force Bond scenes, he looks, like, progressively healthier. Like, he does look better, and the first scene is literally him getting his, like, scars healed. You can go with a metaphor about that.
No, there's no metaphor there.
No metaphor.
You're reaching.
And directors think about this stuff.
No.
Directors and writers, they think about this
Coincidence.
stuff. All just a coincidence.
Total coincidence. I've never heard of a single author putting double meanings behind anything.
Like, when the first Force Bond happens, like, their voices are all really echoey to each other, and you're seeing this you see all the Force Bond scenes from Rey's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why I think the last Force Bond scene, which is from Kylo's point of view, is so important to the narrative, because a lot of people think Kylo was manipulating Rey, which no part of the movie, no part of any interview has ever implied that.
Yeah, no.
Ever. But if you were questioning that, or were you supposed to, that last Force Bond scene is absolutely a guarantee that he's very sad and actually felt something there.
And actually and physically reacts when it happens.
Yeah.
First Force Bond scene, see it.
And then
cut to us holding each other.
So, because he immediately does the Jedi mind trick, in that scene, or tries to. Like, there's so many things in this movie to try to tell you without obviously telling you that Kylo cannot
manipulate her.
Manipulate her or use the Force on her.
Yeah.
Either in this state or at all, because she's strong. Because he's like, I tried this before and it didn't work. He's like, oh, bring Luke's, and then he's like, I don't know why I'm trying this.
And he works his jaw, and he's like, what the fuck am I?
Then he's like a puppy. He's like, how's this working? Can you see my surroundings? Because I see.
I can
see you.
only see you.
You know, I'm not gonna hide my fangirl. He looks so cute when he just says, he's like, just
I
you.
can't. I can only see you.
But like
and it's the way he keeps his lips puckered after you. He's like, you.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, those are some big pouty lips, boy. Don't look at me.
And Rey just goes at him with a gun. And
He's like, shut the fuck up!
Another just innuendo with Luke was like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, my blaster went off. This will clean my blaster. Woo! Like, oh, not even subtle, Rian Johnson.
Wow, that's a...
Oh, that's just...
I never even thought about that one. That one's funny.
Oh, yeah.
I was just, polishing my saber.
Just polishing... Kyle, what are you doing? Polishing my saber?
You're what?
So, like, the second scene is with the rain. This is a scene.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Kylo just generally, he's always kind of been weirdly sensual. Not, like, his character in himself is very sensual.
Because he's raw emotions. His nerves and his emotions are so visible and raw. That's what makes a person so appealing and so sensual. And that's what, like, again, Kylo's not a Sith, but he does draw on the power of the dark side, which is about feeling. It's about feeling a lot of things, and like sexual energy is one of them, because that's what's so forbidden for Jedi. So guess who embraces it? If the light side says don't do it, the dark side says hell yeah, feel that shit.
Because if you've ever met Kylo at the Disney parks, let me tell you.
Oh my god.
Because he gets so close, like the way he like walks and stuff. I mean, it's very accurate to how he is, and looms. It's very sensual kind of presence.
Deep, like, even just because of the voice modulator that he has, it's like so like
and Adam's
rumbly.
Voice, even without it, is just like super puddingy.
I feel my like animalistic sensibilities being like, oh boy. I'm like, oh, I didn't
like Mickey Mouse.
I didn't know that this would affect me, but you're tall, looming over me, and your voice is kind of guttural and deep, and it. Oh, I feel it like all the way down to my all the way down to my toes, and I was like, oh, I didn't. Oh, Jesus.
Because when he like turns around and he's just like, why is the Force connecting us? You have like the same look,
those eyes,
the same eyes you had in the forest. It's so.
So you've been thinking about it a lot, huh, Kylo?
You have, and it's like when you called me a monster, it's like you are a monster. The line that gets me is the. You know everything. He says something like, "You know everything you know about me." You do. That you do is. Oh boy, the way he delivers that. And if you are in the Reylo community and you've read Reylo fanfic, that you are a monster and that the I am a monster is in 90% of in-universe fic.
Yeah, I mean, as a person who does not read Reylo fic, when that happened, I was like, I think I even turned to you and was like,
yep,
that is what you would say, right before you, like, tear off each other's clothes.
Yeah. Like, this whole movie is a giant sex metaphor. I don't know what to, tell you. If you honestly didn't see the romance or sexual tension here.
When to become one.
And...
Did you also not know that Spice Girls song is about, fucking people having sex? That's,
no.
Yeah.
But, like, Mark Hamill literally calls it romantic tension.
Yeah.
If he just says, hey, they have some romantic tension, it's there. And I think that, again, it's not really absorbed from the female point of view. Because when Kylo acknowledges himself, he's like, I am a monster, that's when Rey is like, that's when she first starts kind of backing down a little bit. Because he's acknowledging that about himself. And so clearly he knows that his insides and feelings aren't all right. And so it's such an interesting moment. And then the Freudian wet dream.
The wet leather glove?
The wet leather glove. That is such a Freudian wet dream.
Yep.
Like, water on leather is such sexual imagery. But as someone who's absorbed a lot of, like, gothic and tragic romance in their life...
Yeah.
Kids, this is what's happening here. So, but moving forward, the Knights of Ren potentially acknowledged.
Yep, that's part of the A-plot.
That's... I was more...
You just wanted to slip it in.
I did, but I was going to talk about how the telling of the stories.
Oh, got it. Okay.
That's how that came in. But where Luke first tells Rey, like, this is what happened.
He was like, I was innocent.
I swear. This is all that happened. That's all the details.
The end.
Oh, Kylo, when he's even being like, did he tell you what happened? Like, it's so sad. Like, it's so sad and, like, pathetic.
She's like, I know everything I need to know. And he's like, he didn't tell you.
He didn't tell you. It's...
Ask him.
Go. Just, did you tell me what happened? And...
He's so cash.
But it's also, like, really sad when...
The way his eyebrows are, like, so raised. Like, he is, like, opening himself
I cannot wait
He's
to
so
get this
vulnerable.
Blu-ray. I cannot wait. And so Luke starts telling this story. We see the story 3 times. Luke, his first story, which is the lie. Kylo's, which is the truth from his perspective, and the final version of the truth, which, is pointless. It doesn't matter. Because even if Luke had changed his mind and he was like, it was an instinct, it was enough that it was too late.
Did you do this? Did you create Kylo Ren?
But he does, I believe, mention the Knights of Ren, because he's like, I took Kylo and a dozen other students, and then he took some of them with him and killed the rest. And as we know, there's 7 Knights of Ren, including Kylo, because in the Force Back, originally we thought Kylo was killing one of the Knights of Ren in that Force Back scene, but that people have said, like Pablo Hidalgo was like, no, it was just some other guy that wasn't a Knight of Ren. So I think this is, it might eventually go to, like, this kind of balance metaphor that there was also, because there's 12 students, 6 other Knights of Ren, and that's half of them, of people that were also struggling, and were having a hard time addressing their emotions, and instead of the 2 people, like, working together to try to talk things out and communicate things healthily, which is what Rey and Kylo are doing this whole time, they slaughter people and leave. I hope to God the Knights of Ren are in 9.
Yeah, me too.
That's...
From a selfish reason.
Yeah.
Because I want the Knights of Ren to mean something, because...
That's our podcast! So we go, next is the best scene, is the shirtless scene.
Could you please put on a robe or something? And he's just like, no. Steps closer.
I'm just gonna get closer to you. And... like, I just love... I'm interested in the discourse around this scene. One, because I love that when Rey is like, I don't want to do this now. What? She, like, turns to look at him, and then the second she realizes he's not wearing clothes, she's like, like, then she's like, can you put on, like, a cowl or something? People are like, see, she was repulsed. And you were sitting next to me in this movie. And if you didn't know, I kind of like Kylo Ren.
And you're very enamored with Adam Driver. I'm like, dare I say it, from kind of a shallow standpoint.
Yeah, but you're sitting next to me, and then when that happened, I literally had to turn away.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't look.
Well, I'm just like grinning, and like I was like, ah! You turned away.
One day this is gonna come to
and
bite
it's
me,
like,
yes.
and it's like, but no, that's a very legitimate reaction to like,
and clearly at this point she's not his biggest fan, and that does kind of like.
So that would be like complicated.
But just
for her.
saying, you walking in, if I would walk into anyone's room and it was not someone that I was comfortable with and they weren't wearing clothes, I would be like, no matter how attractive I found them or not, I'd look away and be like, oh, I'm sorry, can you put on a cowl? And I love that she asked him to put on a cowl because that would have helped not at all.
Nope.
Literally, would it just covered his neck.
Yeah.
Because, like, his cowl in The Force Awakens is just the scarf. Yeah. You would still be able to see his boobies. Uh-huh. So Rey's like, no, I still want to see the boobies, just cover
just
the
look
scar a little bit, maybe?
Just, I'm gonna ask you to put on some clothes so it looks like I'm being polite, but I still want to see them tits.
And also, for those of you who don't know, I mean, I sort of mentioned it before, I love kind of period pieces. The first love of my life was Jean Valjean from Les Mis. I was 5, and I loved him. So high-waisted pants are 1,000% up my alley.
And girl, they're so in right now.
And so,
mostly on girls, but that doesn't mean Kylo can't rock it.
I mean, Darcy, Jean Valjean.
Now Kylo Ren.
I mean, I was in love with the Phantom of the Opera too.
Yeah, you were.
I loved the high-waisted pants. And I really think that was to make it a little less sexual. Yeah. Because if he was wearing, like, lower-cut pants...
and his abs were out, and he just looked like fucking, like, Thor,
it
would have been, like...
It would have been almost too fourth wall breaky.
Yeah, but it would have been so...
It would have been so good. But it would have been so, like... And I'm saying... You're saying that I'm looking too far into it? Dear Lord. And, again, I also think there was a point to it of only showcasing the scars that Rey gave him.
Yeah,
because it covers the
blaster.
The blaster wound, and so you only see the shoulder wound and the
face one.
The facial scar. So I think that is part of the reason.
Yeah, shoulder.
There's the shoulder and the scar.
Yeah, so I love
you only ever see that, and I think that was kind of...
I think that's one of the first things I said, too. I think I, like, mumbled it to myself, and I was like, oh, there's her wounds.
Mm. Yep.
Those are the wounds that she gave him.
And so she has to, like, come face to face with the damage that she's done
to him. And also his rockin' titties.
Yeah. Because it's kind of, it's an interesting scene in that way, where she's yelling at him of how he's hurt her. Mm-hmm. Like, how'd you kill your father? Like, why'd you, like, I cared for Han. Like, how could you do that? Mm-hmm. But meanwhile, he's showcasing, like, the physical damage that... Mm-hmm. She's done to him. Yeah. And then I love, like, the line where he's just like, I didn't hate him. Mm-hmm. And then he starts going into the how the past is limiting her. Mm-hmm. She's like, your parents didn't care. You keep looking for these, like, parental figures and all of these adults, and they keep
disappointing you.
They keep disappointing you, and they're holding you back because you don't see this potential in yourself, and you need to get... And then she, basically by the end of it, realizes she needs to go get answers for herself. And Ryan even, like, talked about this scene, like the shirtless scene, with a point of, we did it to create a form of intimacy. Like, that they're kind of becoming...
And vulnerability. I mean, it's just him peeling away more of the layers. Mm-hmm.
And I just... Like, so, like, literally. In canon, these are all the things that happen after, like, the shirtless scene. She listens to him and, like, goes and confronts her dark side and goes straight to him to talk about it, mm-hmm. initiates physical contact because of it, sees a future that she longs for him to have, and then mails herself in a fucking box to him. Yep. And tells him that she's gonna help him while, like, gazing at his, like, chest and lip area. Mm-hmm. And people are like, she was repulsed.
She overnight shipped herself to him.
I just love that the coffin that she shipped herself in is marked, like, property of Han Solo. I just like Kylo walking up to him and be like, what the shit, dude?
Stop cock blocking me, Dad! Dad's like, no, I'm helping.
And then, like, Ryan, we did it to create a form of intimacy. it's just really frustrating to
still be told that we're reading too far into it.
When we were right last time. I mean, there's no guarantee that we're also right this time. I have very little doubt about it, though.
I believe that we are 100% spot on with what Ryan wanted.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, do I know if JJ is going to follow through with them? No.
So, yeah, now the next scene is good old Smut Hut, which was a rumored scene for a long time. I think about a year and a half we've known about this scene. Like, this scene came out while they were filming the movie. And...
Was it just that they knew that they were going to be in a hut together and that's it,
No,
basically?
the thing that leaked was that Rey and Kylo are having a conversation that Luke doesn't like, and so Luke explodes the hut. So, Rey the Fanbase jumped on it, and was like, Smut Hut! It's happening, man!
Yeah.
And, I mean, that was probably one of the best spoilers, like, more solid spoilers, because a lot of the other spoiler websites were wrong.
So wrong.
So wrong. But I want the cave scene. So she goes to the cave, and this is what Ryan Johnson has to say about the cave scene. The idea was if up top, like in the mountain, that's my own quote, is the light, down underneath is the darkness, and she descends down there and has to see, just like Luke did in the cave, her greatest fear. And her greatest fear is that in search for her identity, she has nobody to rely on. She has no one but herself to rely on. And I do think this was a good parallel to the Luke scene, where his greatest fear was, oh, you think it's just fighting Vader, but then you see his greatest fear is becoming Vader.
Yes.
And then with Rey's instance, her biggest fear
was that she was all alone.
Yeah, that she's alone.
Yeah.
And in her whole journey, she's just going to have no one but herself to help her.
Yes.
And which is why it's such a good scene, is that when she's narrating and you don't know who she's talking to,
and you're like,
why is she narrating? This is
Star Wars
really
doesn't
weird.
narrate. This is weird.
For me, there's a lot of podcasts I want to do in the future. One of them is talking about the Mortis arc. But in general, Star Wars for a long ass time has talked about, like, too much light or too much darkness would be the end of everything.
Yes.
And that there's a balance that needs to be achieved. And they've never really explained why before. They just, like, they've never told you why you need the dark side before. And I don't think you need the dark side, but I'll explain my train of thought a little bit now. Because like, Rey and Kylo's storyline is really the first time that you see why you need both of them in order to be balanced. To me, Rey and Kylo don't really represent two separate human beings, but the two sides of, like, the human psyche, like the positive and negative parts of, like, our own brains. Yeah, like Rey being optimistic and hopeful and light, and Kylo's more cynical and critical and dark. Because Kylo this whole time is getting Rey to admit these hard truths about herself. Rey knew her parents were never coming back for her, and somewhere in her brain that she hid away, and she knew they weren't good people, but her optimism blinded her, and she wasted her life away on Jakku, because she thought they were like, no, they're coming back. They're coming back. She had, like, this ultimate faith in them that they were going to come back for her. And she continues to kind of put this, like, blind faith in other people, and she does this with...
She did it with Han.
She did it with Han, and she started doing it with Luke, and...
She did it with Finn the first time she met him.
Yeah. With Luke, it also kind of... She's like, no, you're, like, the Luke Skywalker. Why aren't you
living up to my expectations?
Like, this blind faith is not a good thing, and it severely limits how she saw herself and how she lived her life. Well, Kylo, on the other hand, becomes far more docile in Rey's presence. Like, he was like this in TF8 too. Is that he was a Kylo we hadn't really ever seen when he was with Rey. He, like, calms down significantly. Yeah. Kind of like watching the difference between when Finn has the lightsaber and he's like, that thing's mine, I'm gonna kick your ass. But when Rey gets a lightsaber, he's kind of, like, stunned.
And then he's like, oh my god. He's like, you need a teacher.
Yeah. Let me look. This is, and in the even the interrogation scene with Rey compared to Poe. So yeah, Kylo becomes a lot more docile, and because you need hope, and it's kind of like why people go to religion in times of need, because sometimes you just need to believe that there's something bigger and hopeful that will make things okay, and it's why religion is so comforting to a lot of people. It's because it's an answer that...
And that if you believe, no one can really disprove for you.
Yeah. And so that's why, like, both of them together work so well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the Jedi obviously were so against feeling these feelings.
Mm-hmm. For me, it doesn't make any sense, because, like, for me, so much of what they tell you to close yourself off from is what makes you a human. Mm-hmm. Is what, and it's always been a thing for me that I was like, oh, I don't agree with the Jedi at all, and I'm so happy that these new movies are kind of...
a lot of people were upset with how they painted the picture of the Jedi. I'm like, did you not watch the prequels? I know you, like, hate
Probably
the prequels,
not,
but that was the whole point, is that the Jedi weren't that great. They were kind of shitty. So, like, Kylo's whole point is, like, hey, you need to stop limiting yourself. Admit these hard truths to yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, what makes you angry? Why are you doing things to your parents? I want you to say these things so you can start admitting to themselves, so you can start seeing a bigger picture for yourself.
And even the way, because I always think it's so, like, I don't know, but the way that Kylo delivers the line every time where he's like, no, go on, say it. And he's, like, very gently urging her, where you expect him to be like, say it, and then be like, say it, and the next time, but no, like, he's just, he's very calm the whole time. He's like, go on.
And so, so you see once they kind of, like, they have their beautiful, nice hand-touching holy scene, which they have this, like, really great moment in, like, the throne room with them in sync.
Absolutely.
But clearly they don't quite understand why they benefit each other yet. They kind of think that...
They're like, no, you come to my side. No, you come to my side.
They still think they belong on each other's sides yet. That there's not... That their relationship is beneficial to each other. Mm-hmm. And it's not about embracing the dark side. Like, the dark side is still not a good thing. Mm-mm. It's about addressing that feeling scared, angry, or sad just doesn't make you inherently evil.
Right.
It's about accepting them so they don't consume you and you can move forward.
Yes.
And that's what the Last Jedi did a really good job of explaining, because... But then...
So, in any one person, too much light will destroy you. Too much darkness will destroy you.
Too much light kind of blinds you, which... Yeah, that's poetic. And as does the darkness. You need to kind of expand your worldview and be able to address these negative feelings and know that they don't make you a bad person.
Yeah, and just about finding the balance, not only within the Force and within the galaxy, but also just within yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's which I always wanted this movie to be about. And they are definitely hinting at it, because I don't think that, like, super pushed it. Mm-hmm. But if that does not continue in the next movie, I'll be furious.
Yeah, like, Kylo's this person that really only sees the negative and everything, the bad, and why everything needs to start over in order to achieve, like, a good galaxy. And, like, yeah, there's bad decisions in the Jedi, there's bad decisions in the Republic, and the Rebels clearly weren't making the best decisions this movie.
What do you mean? Nobody made any mistakes on the Rebels.
But he just, like, can't see the good and worth saving anything. Yeah. And Rey's, like, this other side, like, which is more of a good thing, but it's not always a good thing, because it limited how she saw herself. She couldn't see herself as this hero character. She first thinks Luke's gonna be this hero character, and she even says, no, like,
she's even like, okay, then Ben's the hero?
But Daddy, I loved him, like, I love him, and goes to Kylo, she's like, he's gonna save us. He's the Skywalker. He's
the legacy hero. And instead, girl finally, I think, is starting to understand that she's the...
And so it really just represents to me, like, two different parts of the psyche, and how they don't... their story isn't, like, about two different people. It's about, like, how our own emotions, like, conflict and are at war. So yeah, let's we'll get more into, like, throne room talk. And she mails herself in a coffin, and that's intentional. Ryan even said that she wanted He wanted.
It
He
to look
wanted
like a coffin?
Yeah, it to be a coffin.
Like a rebirth?
No,
Or-
it's Snow White.
Oh.
That's what I think. This was hands down a Snow White. It's also kind of like a little haunting that she kind of like mailed herself in a coffin to.
Yeah, but the thing is I guess the guards are the ones that approach it and not like Kylo. But I'm like, but
I want to know.
were there 7? Were there 7 guards? Were they the 7 dwarfs?
Oh my god,
Let's go back and rewatch.
I'm gonna kill you.
Sorry.
But I want to know the almost deleted scenes that were in there, because I can assume that Rey knows where Kylo is because of the beacon.
Yes.
Because they're chasing the beacon, so she's
But also, I kind of just assumed that she was force bonding it.
force bonding it, but he didn't know where she was.
Yes, it's true, yeah.
Or maybe he did but didn't really care that much. Who knows? Oh, because yeah, this is the first question that I have for you.
Yes.
Do you think Kylo knew what he was going to do, or do you think he acted on a whim?
You mean with, like, killing Snoke?
Yes.
I don't think Kylo had a solid plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was like, okay, we're gonna go in here and something's gonna happen. We're gonna see... Because I feel like so much of Kylo had to wait to see how Rey reacted.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he saw that, like, she was ready to fight, and that she was... Because he already knows how strong she is. When she was ready to fight, he was like, this is my moment. I've been waiting for this. I haven't been strong enough to do this alone. Personally.
Because I kind of
I don't think he was
had a
like,
plan.
and then this will happen, and then this will happen, and this will happen. But I do think
I think
he was...
personally, he was like, Snoke's gonna fucking die. I just touched hands with a girl. The world is my oyster. And Snoke stopped me from doing this before. I held hands.
I touched her fingertips, and they were so soft.
They were so soft. I'm gonna kill this man.
Doesn't make any sense, because she's from a desert, and I'm the one constantly wearing gloves.
I do kind of flip back and forth. I do think he sort of had a plan. The visual dictionary kind of insinuated that, but
like, I think he
it's
had...
hard because
I think he had an idea. I think he knew what he wanted to happen, but then was like, but we gotta see
because they bring up the, like, one, Kylo's super spacey, like, Rey gets there, and they've been conversing really well up until that point, but when...
Well, he's good at texting,
he's
but
good at texting.
when they get in person, he's like a different person.
Yeah.
And he's so much, I think because he has to be in the Kylo headspace, going into Snoke, he can't be Ben, because he's kind of been Ben when he's talking to her.
Yeah.
He's been, like, literally, they've been showing him vulnerable by, like, he no longer has the glove on, he doesn't have the mask on anymore, he doesn't have a shirt on. He's exposing these layers of himself.
Yeah,
so
him taking off that glove.
Oh, yeah.
And also just, like, the altar symbolism with the hand touching scene of them, like, touching hands over a fire. And then when Luke, like, comes between them, it's such, like, a chapel.
Speak now or
like,
forever hold your peace. And Luke's like, me!
That's me! It's such altar symbolism. Oh, man, I think people are real trying not to see any romantic tension there.
Yeah, I think so.
They're real they're just like, no, I just didn't watch the movie. It's fine. So, cause like when like Rey arrives, but it's interesting, that ship's huge, and he like immediately knows that she's there, and so Finn and Rose go on this huge journey to try to get on this ship, and because they're like, oh, they'll never let us through, they'll just shoot us down. Like, immediately. Meanwhile, Rey is like, yeah, he won't shoot me down.
He's like,
we
nah,
just touched hands.
We just touched hands, and I told him, like, baby, I'm coming. You DTF? Down to fight? Snoke?
Oh, nice. I like it. And, the wink, the you're not alone, neither are you thing. Yeah. It's such a heartbreaking, tragic story, and I love it so much.
Beautiful.
So they go through the elevator, and Kylo's kind of being weird, and obviously Kylo can't tell Rey what he's doing because Snoke can go through their minds so easily. Yeah. So easily. So he's like suspiciously quiet, and then like this reason why I think that he kind of he knew.
Mm-hmm.
When Rey says, "You will not bow before Snoke," and Kylo's like, "Yeah, I know. Like, we're about to kill him." But he doesn't disagree with that.
Mm-hmm.
He just thinks, he's like, no. He's like, I don't disagree. I also saw something, but because of that, I know that when the time comes, you'll stand beside me. Because I'm not sure if this is totally intentional, but I like it, is that Kylo waits for Rey to bow until Rey's in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he won't bow for Snoke.
But now she's there.
Yep.
She's like, yeah, I'm bowing down, but she's stepping from me, so secret's out, I'm bowing
See?
for her.
See?
You think Snoke's too
And
cool?
also, Snoke has this kind of blatant line about, you brought her to me, my faith in you has been restored, because there was a certain level of trust that needed to be established there, because it had been lost before Kylo could kill him, or kill him. And so, I mean, Snoke needed to trust him before letting his arrogance get in the way.
Right. Especially after Kylo already tried to attack him early in the movie.
Yeah. So I personally think it was kind of he was a man with a plan.
Yeah, I think that he had a plan. I don't think, that he had, like, a totally thought out one, but he was like, I'm going in there and shit's gonna go down.
Because, and
these are the things I need to,
the point where he tried to charge him in the beginning of the movie, and so Kylo clearly knows he can't do this by himself.
He's like, no, I need somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I know that Rey's super fucking powerful.
And in certain sexual imagery, that finger twist and, like, that thing. I wish this was a visual podcast sometimes.
Oh, boy. That was a... Yeah.
But
just thinking about that now, though, I'm like...
The whole thing, there is so much sexual image. Like, literally the last, like, shot, Kylo penetrating, like, the guy's helmet, and you just see, like, the... Sir.
And everyone goes, woo!
Yep.
And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm moving for a different reason.
On another primal level, that makes me go, ooh.
It's such a
base human, like...
scene, base. Mm-hmm. That fight scene was so great.
Was beautiful. No,
Thigh grab. I want so much more of them on the same page as each other.
It's so beautiful.
They were fighting so well.
That fight scene was, like, one of the most beautifully choreographed things I've ever seen in my life. I love it.
My kids working together and her calling... Things I thought I would never get.
Ben.
At least in her calling him Ben constantly.
For the rest of the movie.
Yep. But now I have another question for you.
Yes.
When it comes to, like, the vision of the future Rey and Kylo saw, do you think it was the same vision or a different vision? The same vision misinterpreted, or two different visions?
No, just because of the background that I have with Star Wars, I do believe that it's the same vision misinterpreted. Mm-hmm. So much so, like every prodigy that we've ever had, every like the chosen one, you can misinterpret that. Like every single time we've had a like chosen one, some sort of like vision of the future, and then it gets twisted. Yeah, that's what. Maybe I'm biased because of, or like maybe I'm leading too much into the past of Star Wars, but I believe it's they see the same thing, but they see the aspects that they want to see. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was leaning in. And then somebody had said something to me that I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Then I watched the movie and I'm like, oh, so when they have this scene where they're talking about seeing the future, so Rey's like, I saw your future. It was clear. You won't bow before Snoke, and then Kylo says, I saw something too, and because of that, I know that when the time comes, you'll stand beside me. Mm-hmm. And then he clarifies, he's like, I saw who your parents were. I'm like, oh, so did he not see the future? Did he see her past and she saw his future? Mm. And the reason was like, I saw who your parents are, so I know that me and you connect in this way, and that you also are desperate to find your place in this story. And so... And you were abandoned by your parents. And so when the time comes... You'll understand where I'm... Exactly. Mm-hmm. Oh. And I'm like, is that what they meant? Because that's what someone like said to me once. I'm like, no, that's... And then I watched it and I'm like, oh. Or is that what they meant? I don't know. Gotta rewatch 7 more times. I'm at 4. I want to see it 8 times. In theaters? Yes. I do. That's a lot of fucking money. I got free movie passes, it's fine. Also, I want to give this movie my money, it's fine. I mean, that's true. And You want to see it 8 times because it's episode 8?
Yep. Well, I saw 7 times. So I want to see 8 times. And hopefully 9 doesn't suck, because
that's a lot of times.
That's a lot of times. Who knows about 9, but... And we will talk... we've talked about it a little bit before, but there are people who think that Kylo was manipulating Rey or lying to Rey the whole time. This is not true.
No, I don't see that at all.
It's like, Snoke literally has a line saying when... Well, first of all, another question for you. Do you think Snoke actually created the Force bond?
No.
That's...
It's been established before.
This is such a weird retcon. Because I don't want to sound hypocritical, because I so am angry at people that don't believe what is being said to them on the film. But the "Don't be afraid, I feel it too" line is such an establishment that they feel this weird connection with each other. And this is before Snoke even really knows Rey exists. This bond, to me, would happened because of them in The Force Awakens. And it does make sense that he would try to claim that it wasn't real, it wasn't between them, it was his fault, it was his doing to try to break the attachment with them, because he probably knows that Kylo has this attachment with Rey, and so if he says it wasn't real, and she just kind of thought she could save you because she saw your weakness, and you were too weak, the line is, I knew he was too weak to hide his weakness from you, if literally what Snoke says.
So the way that I interpret what he's saying, because I don't believe that he created this bond, because that bond has been there, I can see that he poured energy into it, if that makes sense. Like, maybe the voice
amped it.
Yeah. Basically, that he saw that there was something already there and was like, neither of them are strong enough for them to be able to see each other this far away without, like, a little bit of juice. And so maybe he was facilitating that bond. And, because he's such a powerful Force user.
Because I do think the end scene where they can see each other one more time is supposed to be, like, the realization for both of them that it maybe was something different than what Snoke said. But I don't know that, because I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, like I said, of the people who don't believe what's on screen.
So this is the way that I see it. Before, these two had dial-up internet. And then Snoke upgraded them to high speed. To high speed. And that's not going to go away just because he died. He already paid for it. So, like, he's already... Like, but that's, like, the way that I kind of see it.
It's the best metaphor in the whole podcast.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
So, like, it's still there, and it's not going to go away, besides the fact that Rey closed herself off to it.
Yeah. And I also... Like, on the note of the quote-unquote manipulation, I think Snoke's the only one pulling strings here.
Yes.
Because if Kylo was manipulating Rey, Snoke would have fucking said it. He would have told Rey. He wouldn't have been like, oh, you saw his weakness and you felt bad for him. He would have been like, he was tricking you.
He was lying.
Because he wants to cut that separation. That's why he says, it's like, oh, the bond was me. You thought it was something special and unique. No, it was me. And... so if that plot line of him manipulating her was actually supposed to be there, this is the time where it would be revealed. And it's never revealed in the movie. It's never addressed. Rey never questions it. Kylo never does anything to really make you suspect that he's manipulating her.
It would almost be, if they did pull that, I feel like at that point it would have been cheating the narrative.
Yeah.
A little bit, where I'm like, oh, there was no hints of that at all, that I feel kind of betrayed.
Yeah, that the story becomes so empty.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I'm proud of my Bens. Cutting assholes in half.
Yep, good boys.
Those are my boys.
Good Bens.
Also, Rey's the first one to admit who her parents are. For those of you who think Kylo was lying, I've seen this theory. Of that, like, Kylo's using, like, a Jedi mind trick to make her say who her parents are.
It doesn't work on her!
It's
never worked on her.
This theory is like, okay, so he can make her believe and say anything, but he can't make her join him as, like, rulers of the, like... It's clear that both of them have their agencies here and aren't bending to fit each other's will. It's...
And, like, at this point in time, we've seen that they are evenly matched. They are evenly matched in the power of the Force. You see that 2 seconds later when they're both trying to get the lightsaber from each other. Yeah. And this time, Kylo isn't injured.
Yeah. Because, yeah, they're each other's equal at that point. And Snoke even says, I knew as you grew stronger, you're equal in the light would, too. So there's kind of this new prophecy-esque thing that's happening. Snoke knows something about how they're kind of made to balance each other. And this is my personal flaw with this scene. I understand what Ryan was trying to do, but as someone in the Reylo fandom who's been nothing but shit on, not nothing but shit on, there's a lot of really great stuff, but you get shit on a lot. The Kylo's "you're nothing" speech should have been written differently.
It was too poetic for the average mind.
Because the intention behind it, like Ryan even came out in an interview, was like, this is Kylo's moment of relating to her, where this is his, I saw your past, you and I relate to each other, you were also thrown away like you were nothing. Kylo thought he was thrown away like nothing. His parents had this huge part in this universe. They were galactic known heroes. His uncle was this legend. Luke Skywalker
was a superhero. People didn't even think he was real.
Yeah, and now Ben's like, I don't have a place in this story. I'm just the person who came after this story. Yeah. And I feel like that's really meta for the fan base, because so many people were determined that Kylo wasn't the Skywalker in this tale. And I do think that the fourth time I watched it, that did read to me, but the first couple times, it does kind of read the you're nobody, you're nothing. I'm like, oh, that's kind of douchey. But not to me. And then people are like, that's emotional manipulation. And I'm just like, I know it's worded poorly, but that's not the intention of that speech at all. No. It's not to bring her down, so Bud's like, but I bring you up. It's that both of us have felt this disconnect, this abandonment, and that we don't have a place in this story. I know that together we can make our place in history, that we can together rule the galaxy.
Yeah, we can make our legacy, like we can create our own story.
So it's really, I feel like it was just worded a little bit wrong, because of people, especially the people who are just desperate to see it as fake and manipulation the whole time, really glued on to that scene. And even I admit, I'm like, oh, God, that was worded a little bit wrong. And Ryan even came out being like, guys, it's
not what it is.
It's not what it is. He also feels even though they come from very two different reasons why they feel abandonment and loneliness, and why they don't have a place in the story. Rey because she came from nothing, and Kylo feels like he's nothing because he came from... in comparison.
Yeah, but so many people, and you're right, I can see how that can be misconstrued, especially because so many people think that Kylo thinks he's hot shit. And I'm like, no, Kylo's the most insecure character in this whole movie, you guys. He literally wore a mask for the entire first movie because he was so insecure about himself and his standing. And you also learn in this movie that he's the only one making himself wear that mask.
Snoke's like, take that garbage off your face.
You're a child in a mask.
You kind of think Snoke forces him to wear it.
To be the new Vader, but no.
But Kylo is the one that makes him wear it, and then he just obviously is humiliated and embarrassed that he got called out for his silly mask.
For his RP. For his OC.
My OC.
My OC, Kylo Ren.
And I'm a big fan of maybe... It's probably unintentional, but I love the storytelling of Kylo saying, I will let nothing stand in our way in the first movie, to saying the "you're nothing" line to Rey. I'm a big fan of that. And I like the Kylo was like, oh, he was telling the truth from a certain point of view.
Wink!
There you go.
He learned that from his namesake.
The part that is interesting, because Rey, she did technically make the right choice, but you do really see where Kylo's coming from, because Rey still doesn't see herself as an important part of this in the end. Because Kylo's there to be like, you could be a huge part of this. You could, like, rule this galaxy, and she's like, no. And they kind of, it's an interesting take on, I mean, a lot of government stuff that it kind of feels like none of the good people are willing to take power.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
because it's such a big responsibility.
Yeah. And no one, so it kind of
falls to the shitty
falls to the shitty people. Cough, America. Definitely understand sometimes the mindset of just wanting to start over.
Yeah, of the hard reset, absolutely.
Because sometimes it seems like everything's just too corrupt, and there's...
That doesn't mean kill everybody.
No, it doesn't.
Right. No, but like...
Hence, a metaphor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But for Rey to be like, no, what you want is still wrong.
Yeah. Would have been technically more of the responsible thing to... Because she left knowing Kylo had all this power.
She should have.
But that's why it's such like an interesting question.
It's so interesting that she doesn't
she
even...
let him... live, and she let him take power, and she let him do it by himself, and...
She didn't try to sabotage the ship, she didn't do anything, she just left.
And that's another scene, that missing scene of her...
Standing over him, at least contemplating, doing something. Something.
They could have done a really cool scene where she brings up, like, the saber, or, like, Kylo's saber, because the other saber's destroyed, and she just doesn't... I mean, he's unconscious, like, a kind of an interesting parallel to Luke.
Where she holds it, and then she thinks, and she's like, no.
But she doesn't light it, and then puts the saber down next to him and leaves, because she just knows that there's, like, more of a story here, that it's not... It's not quite done yet, but... They have this thing with rulers, and there's good rulers in Star Wars.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
we have Princess Leia and Queen Amidala, so there's good royalty and good, quote, rulers. But, like, you need good people taking those roles.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm so glad to not talk about A-plot, but, like, Finn. I believe that Finn is from his growth, he's finally ready to step into maybe a position like that. Maybe not, like, as a actual, like, quote-unquote ruler, but he's definitely going to start taking responsibility inside the Resistance, and I'm very happy for that.
Yeah. And, like, Rey does take on more of, like, I am the hero at the end of it, but she still doesn't... I like when Kylo's telling her, like, let go of these ideas of the past that are holding you back, because you still can't see this future for you. And I hope that Episode 9 continues to go into that.
Me too, because if they drop it, or if she never is, like, at one point in time, she's there and she's confident and she's, like, ready to take shit on, and she's like, you taught me this. And, like, oh, it'd be so good. She's like, you told me to believe in myself.
You told me to let go, and you fucking won't do it, man.
I think you're the one who won't let go. And you're like, how dare you?
And so, moving on to the last Force Bond scene.
There's more than one way to let go, Kylo. It's not just kill everything.
God, oh my god. Taking everything way too literally, man. So, like, the last Force Bond scene starts off with Kylo dismissing the soldiers, and it kind of parallels people, so he's pushing people away to go be left alone, and... Rey, on the other hand, is, like, welcoming everyone, like, into the Falcon. And he goes into this night kneel position, which, at this point, Kylo is the most powerful man in the galaxy. At this point, he has taken on that role, and he, like, goes down into this night kneel to grab the dice, which I hardcore headcanon Leia left for him. Because, even though I think Leia knew they weren't real, I think Leia knew Luke wasn't real. She kind of, when she kisses him, or he kisses her, she kind of makes this face, like, this really sad face that she's like, oh, you're not
This
is not you. And so I just think, like, I left the dice behind to be like, Kylo, come find us and do this. And so he's in this, like, night kneel. And at this point, probably both Kylo and Rey thought the bond was done.
Yeah.
Because Snoke's dead. And so when it comes back... It's the way they, like, first look at each other it's so heartbreaking. And and this again is, to me, because this is the first time we see the Force Bond from Kylo's perspective, and I do think Kylo's, like, if you're seeing something from his perspective, he's pretty honest about it, and that is pure, genuine
And it's beautiful because it's
heartbreak.
It's the moment that he's calm again is when the bond reestablishes itself. Because like everything, whenever he's dealing with Rey, he's in this like more open, more vulnerable position.
And clearly he was pretty upset before. I mean,
clearly he was fucking crazy mad before when he was dealing with Luke.
He got his heart shattered. And they broke each other's hearts because I think they had this vision of
where she's like, please don't do this.
You'll be powerful. Here's the whole fucking galaxy, which first of all was just the Anakin and Padme scene too. The Ben don't go this way is the same as the Anakin you're breaking my heart.
Yeah.
It's
just written better.
The scene was just written and performed better.
Yeah.
Sorry. He's obviously reacting with some heartbreak because he connected with somebody for the first time and God knows how long.
And then they denied him. And he
and
was
then,
like, I'm gonna blame all of this
he's
on
like,
Luke.
It's like, this is Luke's fault. And Kylo's allowed to be pretty pissed about what Luke did.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll talk more about the Luke story later. That's for another podcast.
That's a separate podcast. You'll have to stay tuned.
And so, like, the final look when they're going back and forth, and he, like, leans forward a little bit, because he's just like, this is, like...
And then she's like, bam!
Shuts the door on him. Oh, podcast question number 4. I'm not sure how many I've asked you. Do you think it's closed forever? Or do you think it's not closed at all? Or do you think it's closed temporarily?
No, I think it's closed temporarily in the same way that, like, Luke tried to shut himself off and then it couldn't stay closed. I think she's very much going to actively... I think the door is closed and she's, like, leaning against it. But it's not, like, welded shut. She's like, please stay closed.
Yeah. Well, no, I meant, like, the Force bond. Is that what you mean? Are you talking
metaphorically? Okay. Metaphorically.
Right.
No, not like the no, the ship door.
That's what I was like, wait, are you talking about the ship door?
Like, in a metaphor.
Okay, yeah.
She's like, I'm shutting this Force bond door, and I'm leaning against it with all of my strength. Do not let this thing open again.
Yeah. I will, because my sort of headcanon right now for episode 9 is that there's some sort of, like, time skip, that there's going to be a significant time skip where the First Order really has kind of taken over. And, this is how I want the Force bond. I kind of want the Force bond to be through... It would be interesting through doors, like, that Kylo can constantly hear, like, her through doors, but he can't ever, like, get to her and open them. And then Rey is kind of, like, a similar position where you only, like, knocking or something on doors, like, trying to get through, but she knows that's, like, it's shut off. And I think the moment that she'll reopen it is Leia's passing, if that happens in this movie. Because I think I'm losing my Reylo card because a lot of people don't think that was to symbolize her closing off the bond. I think it was, but temporarily, definitely not permanently. It's way too cool of a dynamic to close permanently.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But I think that she's actively, like, gained enough Force powers to be like, meh, I'm pissed at you right now. You gotta... I tried.
Time out.
Han tried. You gotta figure out what you want for you, man.
Which is
what...
very good. Because you don't want to go into
the story so well. They could have gone off the rails so easily, and I think they did it perfectly.
Yeah, because let's be real. Kylo and Rey do I want them in a relationship? Absolutely. Does Kylo deserve that right now? Absolutely not. And it wouldn't be good for either of them.
And
the
whole awful proposal is straight out of Pride and Prejudice, which is why Pride and Prejudice is such a great story, is it kind of recognizes that men are raised with this sort of ego, and when they're called out about it, and it kind of, like, with Darcy, kind of, like, shakes his ground, and he's like, shit, am I an awful person?
But wait, I said that I was super cool, and that she should be lucky to have me, and she didn't like that.
Alright, and then he has to go out, he, like, gives her space, he's like, alright, I want to leave.
And maybe I should think about the things.
And then he actually actively works on becoming a better person. Yeah. He just needed that wake-up call to realize...
maybe I'm an entitled prick.
Yeah, exactly. And so they handled that sort of, like, Pride and Prejudice-esque breakup well. It's where it's like, that last moment to me read as maybe the beginnings of a wake-up call. Rey keeps her agency the entire fucking time. She doesn't change her moral ground for him whatsoever.
No.
And, like, that's why they handled it so well.
But so many
But
people...
you can still see that they really connected with each other.
But so many people think that, like, because we ship it, we want them to immediately kiss exactly where they are right now. They just want it to be like, oh, and then they start making out. Like, no. I want these characters to grow as like real people.
And right now with Last Jedi, they've put down this really great foundation for it, that they feel this connection, and
and if they want anything to become of it, they have to look within themselves.
Yeah. Kylo needs to decide things for himself, because his whole life has been basically
trying to live
controlled by Snoke, and
trying to live up to these expectations that he felt he had to live up to.
So he really needs to take a long look in the mirror and figure out what that means. So yeah, episode 9, Kylo ends up being super good at his job. Hospitals, roads, healthcare, universal healthcare, galaxical healthcare.
Yeah. Racism abolished.
Gone. Just safety. Food, jobs. There's actually no plot in 9. No conflict.
No more animal cruelty. No more gambling. Sorry, Crate. You got it. Not Crate.
Canto Bite.
Canto Bite. You gotta go.
I would just think that's hilarious that Kylo's really good at it, and Rey's like, "Why didn't you fucking tell me you had a plan?" And he's just like, "You didn't listen.
You didn't listen to me. And
I was trying to be nice. I offered you to be the queen of the galaxy,
of the most badass galaxy, and you want to know what? Because I made it so that everybody has healthcare now. I've been going to therapy for my anger issues, and I'm feeling like a much better person now. I keep a diary. I have my meditation exercises, and I no longer throw temper tantrums. So maybe you should look into some self-improvement. You can
episode 9.
You can afford it because it's free.
Because I have universal healthcare.
Because I just wanted to be my grandmother the whole time. That's what episode 9's gonna be. Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, everybody.
There you go. And there's like one last thing that I want to point out, because like a lot of people do think like Kylo's past redemption at this point. I don't think that's true. I think clearly there was a big plot plan for him with him and Leia, because one, a relationship with a mother and her kid is way different than like a father and son and uncle and nephew. The bond between a mother and their child is the climax. Like that conflict would have been really important, and I think there was a reason why Leia was avoiding it.
That is not to discredit these other forms of, like, parental love, but for this family in particular...
because, I mean, you see that, that they have this Force connection, and that's established multiple times.
And Leia's been able to feel Ben since, like, almost conception?
Yep.
Like,
she was just like,
there's something growing in here, and in the book, she's like, it's just me and you, little bean. It's growing inside me. It's just you and me against the world.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that Kylo didn't really harbor that hatred towards his mother, that he couldn't kill her, even though he's so determined to get rid of the past. So, I mean... I clearly think there's still a shot for redemption. I think it's going to be hard because he is in the spot as the big bad. This movie, I won't lie, I was hoping that we wouldn't have the Avatar, like, after The Last Airbender, plot beats. And obviously it's a little different because Zuko wasn't... No, actually Zuko did become the Fire Lord. But
it took a while.
It took a while. That... Like, I was hoping to have more time with Kylo going through the redemption arc, and unfortunately they kind of left us in a difficult position for that. Because if you've seen that comic, that breaks my heart every time, where you've seen it, where like the little comic where Kylo and Rey like leave together and they like run away and they just start studying the Jedi stuff together, and then the beacon starts going. Like, the beacon dies, so they go find the Resistance and start fighting together.
And they've got their purple lightsabers.
And she gives them a little haircut, and I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved that, and that was actually one of my ideal or one of my, like, predicted endings for...
Which would have been the, like, this is the one that I want, but it's the one that I'm not holding my breath for.
No, because, yeah, like, I would have liked more time with redeemed Kylo, which is another reason why I hope he doesn't die, because then sure, we see more conflicted than we saw Vader, but we won't ever get to see the journey afterwards, and I think that's a really wasted story potential that we haven't explored yet. But yeah, it's gonna be pretty difficult to do, but we'll see. I don't think the redemption will be difficult to do, but I think how that story will play out. As long as Kylo doesn't kill Leia. Well, yeah. I don't think that will happen, but no. I've been wrong before. I did not think Luke was going to die in this movie, so... But that's for another podcast.
Yeah, I'm still just, like, so much of me is... When I think about Episode 9, I just kind of... Because Episode 8 is still so fresh that my brain just, like, turns into white noise, and I'm like, I can't even begin to even think about what I want for 9 yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what I want, but, like, how realistically it could happen.
Yeah.
I definitely still just need more time to process and watch the DVD a few times, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Speculate, and for, who knows, one interview to drop that I'll be like, there, now I have everything that I want, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So, we'll have to wait and see. There's, I mean, a lot going on. Kylo's in the big bad spot. Rey is in her hero spot.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the Knights of Ren.
Please.
We're
desperate.
And I think that's where we're gonna end today's episode.
Even though, again, it still would be so funny if they end up being nothing, and it's like, well, just like us.
Just like us. But yeah, I'm sure obviously this is a discussion that we will come back to very frequently.
What? No, never.
But I think an hour and a half is a good place to end for today. So thank you for tuning into another episode of Who Talks First / Knights of Rant / Salt Planet Crate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of your hosts. I'm CT.
I'm your other host. I'm Solo.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya!